Towards midnight, it started raining. Lena woke up from her sleep and suddenly felt as if something had dropped on her body. She started having a strange itchy feeling. Lena could hear someone talking in her head, "You need to go to his room and let him sleep with you." Once upon a time, in a small African city called Kumi, there lived a young lady named Zara. She was the daughter of the pastor of the small church in Kumi. Her father's name was Pastor Ezekiel, and her mother's name was Grace. Zara was a well-brought-up girl from a godly family. Pastor Ezekiel preached about purity. He had married his wife as a virgin and desired for his daughter Zara to keep her virginity until marriage. From a young age, Zara was taught the importance of living a chaste life and keeping herself for her future husband, as a respectable lady should. After completing her secondary education at the community college, Zara became an apprentice with a popular tailor to learn tailoring skills. This was to keep her busy and engaged while waiting to gain admission into the university. At the tailor shop, Zara met a young lady about her age named Bisi. The two girls instantly became friends. After work each day, they would walk home together, chatting as they trekked along the busy roads before bidding each other good night at the junction leading to their respective houses. Unlike Zara, Bisi did not live with her parents. Instead, she lived in a small house that had belonged to her late maternal grandmother. A few weeks after Zara started her tailoring training, one of her mother's friends named Mrs. Ode paid Zara's mother a visit one evening to warn her about Zara's new friend, Bisi. According to Mrs. Ode, Bisi was the daughter of a witch doctor named Olu. Rumors circulated that Olu had used his dark powers to kill Bisi's mother, which was the reason Bisi left her father's house to live alone after her mother's death. Mrs. Ode advised Grace to warn Zara to cut all ties of friendship with Bisi, the daughter of the evil witch doctor. When Zara returned home that day, her mother sat her down and told her everything Mrs. Ode had said about Bisi and the need for Zara to end their friendship immediately. However, for the first time in her life, Zara stood up to her mother and refused. "No, Mama, I don't care what you say about Bisi's father. Bisi is a good girl and an amazing friend. Nothing you say can make me end our friendship," Zara declared. With that, Zara continued her close friendship with Bisi. The two quickly became best friends, sharing secrets and everything else. As one of the good and well-behaved girls in the small city, a young prince named Tan took an interest in Zara and came to ask for her hand in marriage. Zara's parents were delighted by such an honor and gladly gave their blessing for the union. You see, Bisi also had a boyfriend named Jide, who had promised to marry her. Bisi would visit Jide during the weekends and spend the entire time with him. One afternoon, Bisi paid Jide an unexpected visit at his house and was shocked to find him in bed with another girl. Over the years, Bisi had heard stories of Jide's terrible reputation for being unfaithful to women and sleeping with anyone, but she had never believed the rumors until this very moment when she saw the truth with her own eyes. In a burst of anger, Bisi threw the engagement ring Jide had given to her a few weeks earlier down on the floor. She told him that it was over between them and stormed out of his house, utterly heartbroken. Bisi went back to the tailor shop in tears, crying uncontrollably from the painful heartbreak. Zara did her best to console her friend, but Bisi only cried harder. On their walk home, Bisi narrated everything that had happened to Zara in more detail. Zara felt genuine pity for Bisi, having to go through such an awful betrayal. She tried her best to cheer her friend up. "Bisi, this is not the end of the world," Zara assured her. "I am sure you will find a better man who will truly love and value you soon enough." Later that night, as Bisi sat on the bed in her small house, she began to remember all the good moments and memories she had shared with Jide and his promises to make her his wife one day. Why should I allow just one incident of him cheating to ruin everything we had together? Perhaps I overreacted, Bisi thought out loud to herself. The next day, Zara was shocked when Bisi told her about her new plans to go back and beg Jide for forgiveness and to take her back. "I think I overreacted, Zara," Bisi admitted. With that, she asked Zara to accompany her to Jide's house to apologize to him and take back the engagement ring she had thrown away in anger. Zara was not at all in support of the idea of Bisi going back to the same man who had cheated on her out of the blue without any signs of genuine remorse, but Bisi's heart was set. Utterly infatuated, she simply would not listen to Zara's voice of reason warning against it. Bisi was determined to win back Jide's affection no matter what it took, despite his hurtful betrayal. The plan was that Zara would go in first to speak to Jide on Bisi's behalf. Once she was able to convince Jide and get him to agree to take her back, then Bisi would come in as planned. So, the two young ladies set out together towards Jide's house to put this plan into action. Once they arrived, Zara went inside alone while Bisi waited under a tree beside the house, as they had planned beforehand. Inside, Zara found Jide looking incredibly sad and depressed, sitting on a mat drinking some fresh palm wine. Zara greeted him politely and told him that she had come to talk to him about Bisi and the situation between them. Jide welcomed her kindly and motioned for her to join him on the mat. He stood up briefly, heading into his small kitchen area. Unknown to Zara, inside the kitchen, Jide opened a small pouch and added a mysterious powdery substance inside an empty cup before pouring some of the palm wine into that same cup. Jide returned and handed the cup of palm wine over to Zara. She thanked him and took a sip of the tinted drink, and that was the last thing Zara could remember. Zara woke up sometime later to find herself in a complete daze, lying on a mat bed in a devastated state with her clothes scattered everywhere. It didn't take long for the sickening realization to hit her: I slept with him, and he forcefully stripped me of my precious virginity. Just as Zara was trying to make sense of this horrifying situation, Bisi came barging into the house after growing impatient from waiting too long outside. Bisi was utterly shocked at the scene of her best friend Zara in such a compromising state on Jide's bed. Before Zara could get a word out to explain, Bisi let out a piercing scream of anguish and betrayal. You evil man! You forced yourself on me and took my virginity, all my pride and purity. Zara cried. Bisi's face contorted with rage. You filthy, deceitful snake! I knew you were flirty, but I never imagined you would stoop this low. Our friendship is over, you disgraceful wretch. With that, Bisi turned around and stormed back out of the house, leaving a traumatized Zara behind in her wake. Despite the false assumptions and misunderstandings, Zara could not find it within herself to go chasing after Bisi to try explaining what had really happened. She felt so ashamed, dirty, and utterly devastated over having her innocence stolen in such a cruel way. In the days that followed, Zara became very different from her usual self. She always looked sad and withdrawn. However, she could not bring herself to tell her parents that she had lost her virginity, the most precious thing they wanted her to keep until marriage. My father will see me as worthless trash if he finds out. What about the prince? Would he still want to marry me if this got out? So many thoughts ran through Zara's mind. Oh, what about Bisi? Will she understand that I was also a victim here? Would Bisi ever forgive me? Zara cried. The next day, Zara decided to visit Bisi to at least explain what really happened to her. As soon as Bisi saw Zara coming towards her house, she quickly chased her away. How dare you show your face here, you little harlot! Bisi shouted as she chased Zara out of her house, not wanting to hear what Zara had come to say. After Zara left, Bisi continued thinking about the perfect way to deal with Zara. I will visit my father, and you will become the harlot that you truly are, Bisi concluded. That evening, Olu was seated in his shrine when he was shocked to see his daughter Bisi standing at the door after so many years. In tears, Bisi told her father how the person she considered her best friend had betrayed her by taking away her future husband. Father, I want you to make that harlot a public toilet for all the men in the village, Bisi said. Olu laughed. Truly, a lion cannot give birth to a goat. Bisi, you are truly your father's daughter. Take this calabash and call her name into it 3 times, and your wish will be granted, my daughter. In 3 days, she will become even worse than a harlot, running after all the men in the village, Olu assured his daughter. After trying in vain to beg Bisi for forgiveness, Zara decided she could not live in guilt forever. She must continue her life, whether virgin or not. 3 days later, the prince paid a visit to Zara and her parents. He expressed his desire to take Zara to the palace to meet his parents and spend some time with them before the wedding. Zara's parents agreed it was a brilliant idea, and excited Zara packed a few belongings and followed the prince to the palace to meet his parents, the king and queen. Upon arriving at the palace, Prince Tan introduced Zara to his parents, and they were delighted to meet her and impressed with their son's choice of a wife. Oh, the pastor's daughter, the king said excitedly. After dinner, they all said good night, and Zara was shown into a very beautiful room where she would be staying during her time at the palace. Towards midnight, it started raining. Zara woke up from her sleep and suddenly felt as if something had dropped on her body. She started having a strange itchy feeling. Zara could hear someone talking in her head, "You need to go to his room and let him sleep with you," the voice said. Zara stood up as if being controlled. She left her room and went into the prince's room. "I am cold," she said, shaking. The prince held her in a warm embrace, hoping to soothe her and keep her warm. But then Zara started moving her hands down his body. The prince was surprised at first because he was told that Zara was a virgin, and he intended to keep it that way until their wedding night. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "Yes, my prince," Zara replied. And so, he slept with her. However, it didn't end there. Zara kept asking for more and more until, by daybreak, the prince was exhausted and tired, but Zara was still ready to go on. "What manner of lady is this?" the prince asked, frustrated. The frustrated prince took Zara out of the palace without saying a word to the king and queen. He took her straight back to her father's house and told them that the wedding was off, then left. When her parents asked Zara what went wrong at the palace, she lied to them that the prince was angry because she refused to allow him to touch her. "You have done well, my daughter. Do not compromise your purity for anyone, prince or not," Pastor Ezekiel said and hugged his daughter proudly. The next day, on her way to the tailor shop, the strange itchy feeling and the strange voice in her head started again. "Zara, you need a man now," it thundered. Just then, she spotted someone coming from the other side of the road. It was Kola, a young man who had asked her out months ago, but she had turned him down. Kola was surprised to see Zara smiling at him, unlike her usual self when she had asked him to leave her alone before. Kola quickly seized the opportunity, took her to a nearby bush, and slept with her. But Zara was not satisfied. She kept demanding more, moving from one man to another, begging them to sleep with her, but no one could satisfy her. Soon, rumors began spreading about Zara, the harlot that no man could satisfy. Word got to Pastor Ezekiel, but he refused to believe what they were saying about his daughter. "These are unbelievable lies. My daughter is a good girl," he would say. Zara knew she needed help, but who would she run to? Her parents would be heartbroken to find out about her activities with men. She just hoped that one day, each and everything would stop. One fateful night, Zara woke up with a strange itch again. She needed a man as soon as possible, but it was late into the night. The only man nearby was her father. The itch became so intense that Zara quietly slipped into her father's room, with tears in her eyes, begging him to sleep with her. Pastor Ezekiel was dumbfounded. It was all true after all. "You foul spirit, in the name above every other name, I command you to come out of her." Pastor Ezekiel started praying fervently. Grace woke up and joined them, and they all prayed until daybreak. By morning, Pastor Ezekiel called some of his trusted church members, and they continued praying until the evil spirit that Olu had sent to Zara's body left, and she was delivered to the glory of God. Months later, Zara got admitted into the university in the big city and left the small city for school, leaving all the awful experiences behind. During her final year, Zara met a young man named Emeka. They fell in love, and he soon asked for her hand in marriage. After graduation, Zara and Emeka got married, and she moved to the big city to live with her husband. However, Zara and Emeka constantly visited Kumit to see her parents. On one of their visits, Zara saw a mad young woman begging for alms on the road. When she stopped to give her something, she instantly recognized who it was, Bisi. Don't forget to hit that like button and smash subscribe, join the squad and never miss out on the fun.